Mike Fitzgerald, president of Frontiers. I'm here at our offices in Western Pennsylvania. Today I have an e-meeting with Craig Hayes. He's the owner of Turneffe Flats Lodge in Belize. It's one of our favorite saltwater destinations in the Caribbean. I look forward to talking with him about the program. Belize is reopening to American travelers in mid-August, and just want to fill in our clients about this wonderful location and possible place to travel in the coming months. Thanks a lot, and I hope that you enjoy it. Hi, Craig. How are things on the island?
Oh, they're fine. They're fine. We've got it much better than a lot of people, I think. We've been here since we closed down, and it's kind of like Groundhog Day, day after day. But I can't complain. A lot of people got it much worse than us.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'm sure in this era with no clients, you're still very busy with maintenance projects and getting things ready for when you can accommodate guests again.
Yeah, Mike. When we shut down, we fairly quickly decided on a couple of things. We decided we were going to keep our employees employed to the extent that we could, number one, and number two, that we were going to assist our guests beyond our existing policies to the extent we could without going broke. And thirdly, that we were going to try and come out of this with something positive. And so we've jumped on a few projects and built a new building and done some new work with our solar system and developed a new menu, amongst other things. So and also working on the Gillnet bands throughout this process. So we've been trying to, like I said, come out the other end with something positive.
That's great to hear. Well, we're really excited that Belize is potentially reopening, I guess, in the middle of August. And I know that you've been in direct contact with a number of the government authorities and have been lobbying hard for the borders to reopen. And maybe you could just tell our clients about that process. And I know that you have achieved sort of the gold level standard in the tourism industry to be able to accept clients. I know that that's been a lot of work, and I just think it might be interesting to hear how that process has evolved.
Well, I kind of had 1 foot in the medical world and 1 foot in tourism. So I volunteered to help with the process, which entailed both, and was kind of honored to be part of the process of getting things reopened in Belize. And I really have to compliment the Prime Minister and the Health Department and the people, the Tourism Department, who really, I think, done an admirable job of developing a comprehensive and rigorous plan to reopen. They've kind of watched everybody else. We're a little bit later than everybody else reopening, and I think the program is the most solid that I've seen reviewing all the reopening programs. It involves 3 big areas. Testing is a big part of it. You either have to have a test within 72 hours of leaving for Belize, PCR test, or have a test when you arrive in Belize. Secondly, you have to download an app, which is a contact tracing app, which will help officials know where people have been in case somebody does develop symptoms when they're in Belize. I should say when somebody does, we know that somebody will. I think it'll be a small number, but some people will. And thirdly, they've developed this gold standard for resorts, and so they're not opening to everybody. They're only opening to places where guests can go for full service. You have places where the food, the meals, the lodging, the tours, the transportation are all controlled by one organization. And the idea is to sort of phase in the reopening with those sorts of facilities first. And it's a very rigorous process. We just submitted a 100-page plus application, and are hoping to be one of the first to be gold standard certified.
That's great. It's there's several destinations that are requiring testing to be done within a certain number of hours before the arrival, and it's difficult in some states because I know, like in the state of Montana, for example, they'll only test people who are symptomatic. Other communities are requiring a doctor's prescription. Where are you steering Turneffe Flats customers to get tests and be able to get the results back in a timely manner?
First of all, we're asking people to go to their local resources ahead of time, see if they can make arrangements to get a test in a timely manner. If they can't, we've identified a couple of organizations that will send a testing kit ahead of time. You then need to take your test right at 72 hours or shortly thereafter, overnight it back to the company, and they guarantee a turnaround once they get it of 24 hours. So that should be pretty effective, as long as they're able to maintain that commitment with the testing crunch that is happening. I'm kind of hopeful that something's going to improve with the testing over the next couple of weeks as well.
No, I agree, and well, that's good that we've got a resource for that. I know that you've had to kind of conduct an array of measures to get the lodge ready for customers, and I'm just curious, what you've done to ensure that clients will feel safe and comfortable when they arrive at your lodge.
That's what this gold standard opening is about, and that requires us to have detailed protocols in place from the time we meet people at the airport, travel in the van to the marina, travel on the boat, what we do in the restaurant, what we do in the rooms, on the skiffs, every detail of our organization. We're already doing training programs with our staff. Everything, the cleanliness standards have to come. They've always been high, but they need to be impeccable. And then we're adding a disinfectant level to everything, so everything is disinfected appropriately, sometimes several times a day. Belize does have a mandatory mask wearing requirement, and we'll ask guests to comply with that when they can't be effectively socially distanced. We'll, for instance, with our dining, we'll offer, of course, groups that are together that want to dine together, they'll be able to do so, and won't need to be terribly spread out if they wish not to be, families or groups. But people who don't know each other will have different dining spots, so they won't have to be in contact with other people at the lodge. We've, like I said, been going through training programs with all of our staff members. You'll see a lot of hand sanitizer and masks and just good practical general ideas and mechanisms for staying safe.
That's great. I know that the sort of tentative opening is August 15th, or I shouldn't say tentative, that's the planned opening. Are most of the U.S. air carriers reinstating service? Is the airlift going to be adequate to get guests down there through the autumn?
Yeah, it was all closed down March 23rd, and so it's hard to ramp up all the airlines at once. United will be flying in from day one on August 15th. Delta and American will be flying in within a week or two after that, and then hopefully regularly. One thing, Mike, that we kind of glossed over that's really important for what we're discussing is that the Belize is essentially COVID-free, and a lot of people might not know that, but it's the only place in Central America it has had very little COVID. The only COVID that has been identified is some initial people right when the ban went into place, and then repatriated Belizeans from cruise ship, employees from cruise ships that were immediately quarantined. So there's been zero community spread in Belize, and that makes it one of the few very safe places in the world to go fishing.
That's great. Great.
Trying to get that message out.
Well, it seems like the flats have been very well rested since, I guess, late March, and I imagine the fishing is absolutely incredible. I hope that maybe you and or some of the staff are sneaking out for a little bit of time on the water. But I just, maybe you could tell our clients a little bit about the resources that you have. I absolutely love it out there. From my perspective, what I love is it's one of the few great places for consistent wade fishing for bonefish in the Western Caribbean. So many flats are too soft, in Mexico and the Yucatan and in other areas of Belize. So that's, I think, great. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about the different types of areas that you have, and maybe touch on some of the conservation initiatives that you've implemented in the region.
Well, first of all, we haven't been out. We haven't had time, so nobody has fished at Turneffe, I don't think, since March. It's been completely rested for about 5 months, and we haven't even seen any commercial boats out until just recently when lobster season opened. So it's going to be fun to see what the fishing's like after this long rest. For those that don't know, Turneffe is a big, wonderful place. It's about 30 miles long, 10 miles wide. It's sort of an isolated marine ecosystem with very deep 1,000+ foot water on all sides, a reef that surrounds the whole atoll, 20+ miles of firm bottom wadable flats on the seaward side, 2 large lagoon systems, sort of an isolated coastal marine ecosystem, if you will. And one of the really cool things about Turneffe is its variety. We've got great bone fishing. We've always had good bone fishing. It's always been sort of the mainstay. But over the past 20 years, we've seen fish get bigger and bigger. Netting was stopped at Turneffe in the late 70s, early 80s, and when we started Turneffe Flats back in '81, and that's really resulted in the bonefish getting bigger and bigger. It's not unusual to see 10-pound bonefish here now. Permit fishing is a mainstay, and I think we have as good a permit fishing as anywhere in Belize. And a lot of people now come solely to target permit. Tarpon fishing is seasonal with, for migratory fish, we have some tarpon year-round, but the migratory fish are here from mid-springtime through the summer. Summer months are really great fishing. We're developing improving snook fishery as well. It's kind of fun. We're seeing triggerfish in the surf, and we always kind of ignored those, but now some people are targeting triggerfish. I guess the Seychelles and some of the Pacific places are responsible for developing that interest. So it's a real varied fishery as well. We're frequently, we fish 9 skiffs, as you know, maximum, and so it's not unusual for our skiffs to be the only skiffs that anybody sees for the day.
In fact, the biggest tarpon I've caught, other than in the Florida Keys, was at Turneffe Flats, and have a picture of it on the wall right behind me. So there, it's I think what's great about your area is the diversity, as you said, and I just think that to have all of those different species available, and on top of that, you've got some other reef fishing that's available too. There's jacks and barracuda, and all kinds of things to chase out there. So it's just a great place. And Another thing I love about Turneffe Flats is it's a great place to take what I call a non or a semi-fishing companion. My wife absolutely loves to dive, and I'd much rather be on top of the water chasing fish. And to have a place where she could spend a couple of half days in the skiff with me, still do some diving, and you also have the Atoll Adventure package. Maybe tell our clients a little bit about how you can accommodate non or semi-fishers joining their fishing companions.
About 35 or 40% of our guests now are scuba divers or snorkelers, atoll adventures, and we have a high-end scuba diving operation, very safe. We get dive instruction, and the atoll adventure package is something pretty special. It centers around snorkeling, but it's a bunch of other eco tours that are run by a real naturalist guide who's very educational and informative, and it's really a nice option for spouses that don't want to fish and don't dive. So it's a combination of those three packages. We also have a non-activity package, but not many people do that. It's just too fun to get out and do something at Turneffe. These days, you asked about some of our conservation efforts, Mike, and these days that's what I spend most of my time on. We have a sister company called Turneffe Atoll Trust, and that right now we're working on a gillnet ban, a countrywide gillnet ban. I think we're very close to getting that over the finish line. Hopefully, we'll have that done before the year is out. We were responsible for establishing the Marine Reserve at Turneffe. I didn't mention, but Turneffe is now entirely a Marine Reserve, the largest Marine Reserve in Belize. We were one of the leaders, drivers for the catch and release law in Belize, along with some other resort owners in Belize. And one real highlight is this last year we were able to purchase all of the remaining national land at Turneffe for a reserve, 17,000 acres.
Wow.
So all of the remaining land at Turneffe is now protected perpetually in a land trust. So those are a few of the highlights of what.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. And you and I have talked about some of those issues before, and I think it's wonderful that you're spearheading them. Walk our clients through the typical itinerary. You fly into Belize City, you're transferred downtown, and then just the typical package is 1 week.
Most people come for a week. We have shorter packages if they wish, but the usual drill is people arrive on Saturday. We meet them right as they come out of customs. It's about a 20-minute van ride to the marina. When everybody is gathered, all the guests for the week, we take only 28 people maximum for a week. When everybody's gathered, it's about an hour and a half boat ride, pretty boat ride over to Turneffe, and check in, get settled in the first night, have dinner, and then Sunday through Friday are full days of fishing. Around 8 hours. We don't have a set schedule, but somewhere around 8 hours of fishing. We fish dolphin super skiffs, and one or two anglers per boat and guide.
And do you typically have the same guide all week?
We find that works best. People get to know their guide. The guide gets to know them. One of the really strong points of Turneffe Flats is our guide staff, and it's extremely rare for somebody to have a problem with a guide or not get along with the guide. We try to sort of match personalities up as best we can. We have a high return guest rate of over 40% year over year, and so a lot of people request their guides. They get to know a guide they're comfortable with, and they fish with them year after year.
Well, our clients love it, and I know we've got a couple of big groups coming up, so we're hoping that the opening plan stays in place. And I know COVID has impacted so much of both of our businesses, and I know you kind of redesigned sort of a COVID reservation policy, and maybe you could just walk through that for our customers.
Well, as we all know, it's a difficult time to travel, and it's a difficult time to get people comfortable traveling, and there's a multitude of things that we're trying to address. As I mentioned earlier, I think Turneffe Flats and Belize are maybe one of the safest places on earth to travel to fish right now. But there's still a lot of uncertainty for people, and the financial end of that is a big part of it. So we've adopted a COVID era reservation policy where final payments aren't due until 30 days before a trip, and they're fully refundable up to 2 weeks before a trip related to any COVID problem or issue. And we just hope to make people feel financially more secure in booking a trip during this difficult time.
That's very, very nice of you, and I think that very appropriate in this environment, and certainly will make the clients feel more comfortable. Well, thanks a bunch, Craig. It was great seeing you. There's nothing I like to do more in this world than chase fish on the flats, and I am hoping to get down there at some point this winter. So I hope that we can see each other fishing as opposed to in our offices.
That would be great, Mike. It's been a while. You're due to come and visit. So
I know my staff seems to be able to get to places more than me, and that needs to change in 2021. I'm getting older.
I can relate to both of those things.
Well, give my best to your wife, and look forward to talking with you again soon, Craig. Thanks a bunch.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mike.
All right, take care.
Pleasure.